Hi, I'm Christine Morani, and I'll be discussing the impact of the oil and petrochemical industries in Sumgayit, Azerbaijan. The objectives of this presentation are to understand the history of the petroleum and petrochemical industry in Sumgayit, explain sources of air, water, and land pollution, demonstrate the detrimental environmental and health impacts, and highlight successful cleanup efforts. We will discuss the history of industry in Sumgayit, sources of pollution, health effects of pollution, environmental effects of pollution, and improvements in pollution levels. In the early 20th century, Azerbaijan was producing half the world's oil. Azerbaijan was a major producer of crude oil and natural gas and remains so today. The majority of the oil industry is located by the Caspian Sea on and around the Absheron Peninsula. The peninsula, pictured here, includes the two largest cities in Azerbaijan, Baku and Sumgayit. Baku was the center of oil and petrochemical production in Azerbaijan until the mid-1900s. In 1949, Sumgayit was officially given city status as it was decided that the Baku petrochemical industry would be moved to Sumgayit. Sumgayit grew rapidly and at one point was producing 40% of all the petrochemicals in the Caucasus. Unfortunately, the industrial complex was very poorly regulated. Safe environmental practices were not in place, and residents of Sumgayit lived in very close proximity to the industrial zone. The majority of pollutants plaguing the city were byproducts of the oil industry. Emissions polluted the air, and solid waste polluted waterways and soil. As pictured here, the Caspian shoreline became a biological dead zone with no signs of life. Incredibly hazardous materials were being dumped haphazardly by the numerous oil and chemical plants. Major pollutants included petrochemical hydrocarbons such as benzene and benzopyrene, volatile organic compounds, oil, petroleum, polychlorinated biphenyls, and mercury. Residents complained of the dense chemical smell in the air and the nausea and headaches that accompanied it. As a result of the pollution, infant mortality was extremely high, with one source citing 74 infant deaths per 1,000. Genetic mutations, neural tube defects, and other birth defects were commonplace. Sumgayit had extremely high cancer rates as well, 51% higher than the rest of Azerbaijan. Pictured here are the adjusted rate ratios for selected cancer sites for Sumgayit and two other Azerbaijani cities with similar populations. As demonstrated in the graph, Sumgayit has higher cancer incidence for every cancer site except breast cancer, confirming the unique hazards of living in Sumgayit. A major blow to the industry in Sumgayit occurred when the Soviet Union dissolved in 1991. The interconnective fabric of the former Soviet Union had been severed, and the market for Azerbaijan's industrial goods disappeared. 90% of industry shut down, as the country had to figure out how to restart manufacturing and build trade relationships. Seeing as the Azerbaijani economy relied heavily on the oil and petrochemical industries, the economic shock devastated workers. However, there was a silver lining. As industry declined, so did cancer rates. Pictured here are age and sex standardized cancer incidence rates from 1990 to 2000. It is clear that as industry came to a halt, cancer incidence began to steadily decline. Pictured here are wetlands near the industrial wastewater treatment plant in Sumgayit. Within a period of only 5 years, there is a vast improvement in the terrain, as it appears to be able to support life once again. Unfortunately, residents did not receive reprieve for long. Industry began again in the mid-2000s. In 2006, Sumgayit was producing the significant majority of hazardous waste between the four largest cities in Azerbaijan. That year, Sumgayit produced 2,198 tons of hazardous waste. Nonetheless, it is worth noting that this is significantly less than the output in 1990, 165,144 tons of hazardous waste. Although industry had declined significantly since its peak, hazards were far from gone. In 2007, Pure Earth, formerly the Blacksmith Institute, named Sumgayit one of the 10 most polluted places in the world. The pause on the oil and petrochemical industry led to the abandonment of various oil wells. As sea levels rose, water mixed with oil from the abandoned wells, leading to extensive pollution of waterways and agricultural land, and the death of various marine life. The buildup of waste from industrial processes had not disappeared with time. Samples of sediment, soil, wood, and concrete were contaminated with crude oil, heavy fuel oil, diesel fuel, and tar. Various marine animals suffered as a result of the pollution. Caspian seals, belugas, and sturgeon populations were all shrinking. Marsh frog populations were losing genetic diversity, and aquatic turtle populations had experienced chromosomal damage from genotoxic polycyclic hydrocarbons. While there were many pollutants to be found in Sumgayit, some of the major pollutants include oil, elemental mercury, polychlorinated biphenyls, benzene, and benzopyrene. As shown here, health effects can be severe. Please pause here to read about the various potential health effects of these pollutants. Pictured here are some of the currently operational petrochemical plants and the main pollutants they emit. Near the Sumgayit synthetic rubber plant, anemia, cancer, and diabetes are very common. This is the complex impact of various pollution sources. Infant mortality is also very high. Much progress has been made in Sumgayit in recent years. Old factories from the Soviet era have been closed and replaced with more modern facilities. Hazardous waste is being managed safely, trees have been planted to remediate the soil, and cleanup projects have helped remove contamination. Nonetheless, more work needs to be done. Heavy metals and persistent organic pollutants need to be addressed. One successful project, spearheaded by Pure Earth, aimed to clean up the organic synthesis plant's industrial waste site. For years, the plant dumped industrial waste in a spa on the beach. The main contaminants at the site were benzene, benzopyrene, and polychlorinated biphenyls. Pure Earth partnered with several organizations to dispose of 600 cubic meters of toxic soil. The team was able to reduce ground contamination by 97% and convert the beach area into a park for recreational activities. Not only are such projects essential for the improvement of the environment and health of the locals, they also give people hope that their land can one day be restored. Again, while more work needs to be done, it is important to recognize the strides that have been made thus far. Infant mortality has decreased significantly in Azerbaijan over the last 20 years and hopefully will continue to decrease. In summary, highly unregulated oil and petrochemical industry in Sumgayit led to massive environmental contamination in the late 1900s. Pollutants had detrimental health effects on humans and animals, as well as the local environment. Efforts have been made to improve hazardous waste management and to clean up old toxic sites. Progress has been made, but there is still work to be done. Thank you for listening to this presentation on the impacts of the oil and petrochemical industry in Sumgayit, Azerbaijan. Please pause the video to review the references.